What's up, you beautiful chuds, and welcome to the Let's Talk Horror channel. For a review, I'm doing another review. I'm getting more and more out all the time, which I'm not complaining about. I enjoy doing them, and I hope that you enjoy watching them because, of course, I try and make them as honest as I possibly can. But this review, I'm going to be talking about Backrooms, the new movie that is directed by Kane Parsons, also known as Kane Pixels, from his YouTube channel, which, of course, is a big part of what Backrooms is, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But in Backrooms, we follow a struggling furniture store owner who accidentally discovers a portal to an infinite maze-like alternate dimension beneath his store. When he disappears into the terrifying reality, his therapist must venture into the unknown to save him. This was a movie that I've been really looking forward to, and I'm really looking forward to doing a review and really sort of going into it. If you have watched my reviews before, of course, you know, for one, they're going to be longer than quite a few reviews that I put out there, because for me to be able to put across how I really feel about a movie, I have to go as in depth as possible, really talk about the things that happen, maybe moments. So I always do say to people that there are more than likely probably going to be spoilers. I don't try to do them, it just happens because, of course, I want to give you my very honest thoughts on the movie, and to do that I need to talk about what happens in it. So make sure that you go and watch Backrooms first, irrelevant of what I say, and then if you want to, you can come back to this review. The way that I do my reviews, because I want to try and be as honest and constructive as possible, I go through my pros, which is everything that I liked about the movie. I do some cons, which is what I didn't like about the movie, and then I give you my overall thoughts and anything else that I sort of want to talk about in regards to the Backrooms or Backrooms. I don't know whether it's the Backrooms or Backroom, whatever, I'll call it whatever I want. Either way, let's get into my pros. So first and foremost, the first pro that I want to talk about is the fact that when you watch this movie, remember that you are watching a first-time feature film director who is 20 years old. This movie, on a technical level, visually, is absolutely brilliant, and I love the fact that they gave him the opportunity to be as creative as possible, because they built about, I think it's like 30 square feet or something of the actual back rooms. So it meant that really you have this really fantastic creative freedom where you're not having to hide anything, and that's what's great about this movie. It doesn't have to hide anything, and I love the fact that it means that it can use these wide angle lenses, these full frame shots, where once again it's not hiding anything. So when you're immersed into the Backrooms, you are seeing everything. And it is weird as well, because even though normally, you know, when you get movies that are dealing with, say, like rooms, and you can sometimes feel the claustrophobia side of it, you do tend to use, say, sort of like closer up lenses, you know what I mean, and ones that aren't necessarily so wide angle, or you do a lot more close up shots, you know, to add to that claustrophobic feeling. But there is still something that, even though you're seeing everything on a wide angle lens and a full frame shot in this movie that looks fantastic, it still gives you that sense of entrapment, like you feel trapped in this world as well, you know, in the back rooms. And that is obviously intentional, and they do fantastic with that. But as I said, I love the movie on a visual level, on a visual medium, because we get to see everything, and I really love that. But once again, like, you have to understand technical filmmaking to do that, or to be able to put the images to screen that we see. You have to be able to understand that, and that's what I really like about Kane Parsons, because he clearly understands that. It's mad to me that this movie is his first movie when it comes to the visual side of it, the technical achievements, and I'll talk a little bit more about the movie technically as well. It feels like it's a movie that's made by somebody that's made 100 movies, but this is his first feature film. And everything else that he has done sort of before this, as far as I'm aware, is building up Backrooms lore and the Backrooms videos and other sort of videos around that sort of, like, you know, topic and so on. You know, the creepy pasta or pasta, whatever you want to call it, you know, the liminal spaces, all that sort of stuff. Like, that's what he's been creating on YouTube. The jump up to be given a budget to make a movie can be very, you know, overwhelming, but it doesn't show that in this movie whatsoever. He clearly has handled it very intelligently, and this movie is very intelligently put together. But visually, on a technical journey, looks fantastic. Not just as well as that, not just the looks of the movie, but also the sound as well. The sound design is fantastic. The score is fantastic. I love the fact that the score constantly feels out of key and out of place at sometimes and off kilter. It really matches, obviously, the tone and the journey that we're on in this movie. Sound is so important. So the score is incredibly important to movies, but also sound design itself. And I love the fact that they do a fantastic job of, where something is lurking in the background, you're hearing the footsteps. They do a fantastic job at bringing that forward and building that tension and dread where you're sitting there and you can feel the fact that something sinister is happening. Whether it's in the background, whether it's happening right in front of you, the way that everything sounds is fantastic. So, as I said, technical achievements, this movie is fantastic. And it looks great and sounds absolutely brilliant. One of the things that I also do love, once again, when it comes to the visual elements, there's two things. One, the fact that this, and this will come up in my cons as well, I do want to say that, but one of the things that is great is that they do use the handheld format in this movie, and it's great when they do. But as I said, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well. And of course, we know that that's sort of the style, the format that Kane Parsons has done with Kane Pixel videos and stuff. The videos we've seen before, a lot of them are all done in a handheld format rather than the cinema sort of format, the Hollywood movie style format that a lot of this movie is. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But when we get that, it looks fantastic, and it really stylistically, using that format really works for a movie like Backrooms, especially, to bring that ultra realism into it. And what I like about that, when we're using that, it's really like highlighting the different sinister levels of where we are in Backrooms, and I like the visual telling of that. For example, when we on the higher levels, as we going into it, of course it's still a little bit off, but everything feels a lot cleaner. It feels a lot more pristine. You'll go into the first sort of room that he enters, and yeah, there's like things all in the middle of the room, but it feels like you could take all of that out and then just put a sofa bed in there and a TV, have a nap. It feels really, like it doesn't feel that off. Something is off, but it doesn't feel that sinister that you're like, well, I probably could have a nap in here. But as we go further into it, I love that where we start going down the levels and it starts forgetting what is, the original, and we start getting the more replications of it, and it starts misremembering, what it all is. We start getting all the sinister stuff, and then we start going deeper into it, where you've got like clothes everywhere, and it looks like the walls are all dirty and grimy, the lights aren't working, and it's fantastic because then we really do get a sense of things are not right, things are going to go wrong, and it's good visual storytelling. So once again, a lot of it keeps on coming back to the technical level, but it's not just that, because the performances are really good in this. Now, there is a big con that I'm going to talk about when I get there as well, to that as well. But in regards to the performances of this movie, they are led very well by the cast. No one's bad in this whatsoever. But I'm going to go into quite a big thing on my cons. But if it's a movie that you've gone into and you're like, I hope the performances aren't rubbish. I hope that doesn't let the movie down. Like, I hope they haven't just got anyone to do it. They haven't. They've got people that are names. They've got people that know what they're doing, and they know what they're doing in this role, and it really does work. So you've got some really good things, and also structurally this movie works really well as well. I am somebody that I don't care whether movies are slow paced movies, I don't care whether they're fast paced movies. I will watch any of them, and as long as the movie itself is good, that's all that matters. I don't know whether this is something that everyone will be able to watch because it is a very slow-paced movie, but I like the fact that when it gets to those moments, a lot of the time when you get slow-paced, slow-burn movies, that's because they have the moments that they want to hit you with the impact. Whether it's physical or violence, or whether it's an emotional impact and so on. And I think that when this movie does do that, and it does it very well, it gives you the impact of those moments where it feels, like you've either been punched in the face or it's an emotional impact, so to speak. So we do get some really impactful moments in this. And once again, it comes down to understanding structure at 20 years old, creating your first feature film. And of course, he's already created fantastic things before this, but like I said, it's a jump up from that to an A24 movie. You know, what a fantastic job he did. So there's a lot to really like about Backrooms, but there might be some things that I don't necessarily like. So let's get into my cons. So when I did my pros, there were things that I liked, but I also said that I want to mention a little bit more, especially when it comes to my cons. One of them, I did mention that performances are good. One of my big problems about this is that it makes you feel a little bit like a hypocrite or somebody that contradicting yourself, because we talk, or I know that I talk very often about where movies now, they don't have characters that you actually really care about. There's no character development anymore. There's no fleshing out characters. It's very much like these characters are really here for one purpose. You don't have to like them, they're just there to die. And obviously, you know, for years and years, you know, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, we always had these characters that we're happy to join on this journey that we're going through. Especially in horror, you know, you need to have those people that you're like, well, you know, if they're just there to die, what's the point? You know, we want to enjoy our journey with them, whether it ends badly for them or ends, you know, happy for them. And horror, of course, has been good at doing that. But recently, character development has sort of gone in a lot of horror or modern day horror. Um, this movie, I feel there's too much over character development, because the fact of the matter is, the star of this movie is the Backrooms. That's why people are going to see this movie. People will go and see a Friday the 13th movie because Jason. People will go and see a Halloween movie because of Michael Myers, Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, Hellraiser, the Cenobites and Pinhead and everything like that. Like, they are the star attraction. And of course, we hope we get some great characters we join a journey along the way. The star attraction for this movie isn't the characters in the movie. So for me personally, I wanted to spend more time with the Backrooms itself and exploring the Backrooms, and then meeting that sinister side more so of what the Backrooms is, and trying to understand it a little bit more. Or even if then you're not trying to understand it, it's just having that time with it. For me personally, you know, you've got the psychiatrist, the therapist character, you've got, you know, all of this happening where they're trying to build the character development rather than, you know, just make it a movie where they're going into the back rooms. But like I said, the thing is that the star of this movie is the back rooms. That is the intrigue, the interest for a lot of people, especially myself, in these movies or the YouTube series and so on, trying to be like, what is this, you know, the lore and how it constantly builds upon it. That's what's interesting. That is the star of this movie, or what this movie should have been, not necessarily building up these characters that you don't necessarily need to. Like I said, the performances are good. And do I think that it is something that makes you go, well, now this movie is not very good? No, absolutely not. I'm still enjoyed the movie, and still very much I enjoyed the movie. And I want to say that now, because whenever I get to my cons, it's almost as if I'm saying the movie's awful because of it. I'm not. I'm just putting my point across in regards to things that I would have preferred, or things that I think could have made the film better in a way. Not that I'm anybody, but this is just me, my opinion. I'm allowed my own opinion. So yeah, so I think that the characters are sort of overdeveloped. I don't think we necessarily need as much story development, character development as we do for the characters. All honesty, I would have much preferred they got rid of the therapist, the psychiatrist character, had this guy who's a bit down on his luck, if you have to do it like that, who's, you know, obviously, you know, struggling with his business and everything like that. He finds the back rooms, he gets his friends, who there's two other people in it, and they're not even in it long. And that's one of the other things that sucks about it, is the fact that they could have utilized those characters more and delivered more of an impact with those characters, where they're sort of getting picked off one by one throughout the movie. You know, you could have even had an extra character in there to do it. I just feel like that should have been the core, that should have been the base of the movie, that you don't overcomplicate it by developing characters, because in a movie like this, you don't have to. In other movies, you absolutely have to. And other movies that we've already seen, they should have absolutely done that. In this movie, the intrigue, the interest is with the Backrooms itself, not necessarily the characters. So I commend them for creating characters that are developed, but also I don't necessarily know if we need it for this movie, because there are so many great moments, or we could have had so many more great moments that are to do with the backrooms themselves, rather than going and doing shots and moments of somebody sitting on a sofa. You know, I don't need those when I'm intrigued about the backrooms itself, which, as I said, is what really is the star of the movie, not the performances. Also, one of the other things that would have made, for example, me be more into this movie, because obviously we're taking out of it a little bit when it comes to the character development side of it, is that as good as this movie absolutely visually looks on a cinematic level, when it's not using, what I love is the handheld format. When they're not using that, it looks great, but when they're using the handheld format, not only does it look even better, but I love the fact that, handheld horrors are absolutely fantastic, because, or sorry, using handheld format as a format for telling horror is so good because of the ultra realism that it gives us. You can look at the Blair Witch Project, for example. The Blair Witch Project, so many people, when that came out, thought that it was real, because it just makes you think that it's real, because all it is just people, or you think normal people, picking up a video camera that you can have at home, although of course times have changed and everything's a bit different. But if you're looking at an old school video camera, you take that out, you go and film what it is, and it's real. And when they use that as a format in horror, as long as it works, like it did, of course, in the Blair Witch Project, it works really, really well. And I would have much preferred if they did that for the majority of this movie. If it started out, the cinematic sort of journey, and then as they go into the back rooms, I'm happy for it to be like when they come out the back rooms, it goes cinematic. But a lot of inside the back rooms, I would have much preferred it if it was almost like a documentation that they're doing with the handheld format, because it just makes it feel so much more darker and sinister and ultra realistic. And when we are using it and we're in those, the lower levels where everything is getting more messed up in the back rooms, where you've got, like I said, the clothes everywhere, it looks like there's blood, but obviously where there are the moments of blood, when you're using the handheld format, it just really truly adds to the tension and dread. And then they keep cutting back to the more Hollywood cinematic formula, and it just doesn't necessarily have as much of an impact when you've already had what we had with the handheld format moments in the movie. So I would have absolutely loved more of the movie in that format. And we only sort of, if we're having to use that, obviously, once again, visually it looks great, but if we're having to use that cinema look, that movie look, as it does obviously throughout pretty much the whole movie, if we're having to use that, I would have preferred it at the start, and maybe at the end when whatever happens, and then we use the handheld format as almost the documentation tool of everything that happens and everything we see, because it looks so good and it really truly adds to the horror of everything that's going on. So I think overpopulation, or not a population, but overly complicated characters, I think it could have got rid of them. I think it should have utilized the handheld format more as well. But and I just think there was a few missed opportunities to make this movie work a little bit better. And once again, understanding what the star of the show really is, and that's, telling the story of the back rooms, not telling the story necessarily of these characters that we don't really know. That for me, as I said, but also at the same time, it's not something that really gets in the way of you going, oh, I hate this movie. It doesn't do that whatsoever. But that's just my very honest opinions on sort of like what I don't necessarily like about it. But let's get into my overall thoughts. So overall, I think what Kane Parsons has created with Backrooms, knowing what he knows, like he is a huge part of what Backrooms is, and building the modern day lore and movies, or like the videos that he puts on YouTube, like carrying that forward and popularizing it. He has done such a fantastic job. So I love the fact that they give him the opportunity to create the feature film for what he's partly part of creating, and popularizing what all of it is. So I love the fact that he's been given the opportunity, but it could have been a train wreck, because you don't know what this person is going to be able to create on a feature film level. And I can categorically say that this is a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. Every movie that I talk about, even movies that I absolutely love, there are always going to be things that I don't like about it, that I wish they had structured better or done better or visually done better. I'm always going to find something. That's just me being a very honest person and constructive as possible as I can when it comes to looking at movies and reviewing them. So, like I said, when I talk about cons, that doesn't mean that now, like, because it doesn't have this or doesn't do that, I don't like the movie. It's not that at all. I really like Backrooms. I really enjoyed it. If there wasn't another film that came out recently that I did a review of that wasn't as good as what it was, Backrooms would absolutely be in contention for being my favorite film of the year. And I think it either could be for so many other people, or might be in the same situation as what I am thinking about this movie compared to another movie. It's just a little bit of a shame. Maybe they came out too close to each other and you haven't got enough time to think everything over. But I've got until the end of the year. But this movie is a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, which obviously I hope you have if you're watching this review, but go and see it at the cinema. It's a very good movie to see at the cinema. It has a few things that I wish that they had done differently, and I think that would have evolved the movie even more so, or better, and gone in a better direction. Like I said, using, the big thing for me would be using handheld format more. That would have been amazing, because I truly love that format when it works, and it would have worked perfectly in this scenario, especially knowing that format is used for what Kane Parsons does with his Kane Pixels channel. That is predominantly the format that it's used in. So to use that and create almost a full feature film doing that would have been amazing, because obviously, we always want decent entries into the found footage or the handheld horrors. We want decent entries because they're not the most difficult things to make, but they're very difficult to make good. And we watch loads of absolutely awful found footage or handheld horrors. It'd be great to have one that we can add to that. I don't think we can add that to this to that, because it's more of a cinematic journey than it is a handheld format journey. It just has like a moment that should have been way more than a moment. But other than that, yeah, overall, fantastic achievement from Kane Parsons. He clearly understands what he's doing technically. The editing's good, the structure of it's good, the sound of it is good. Even though, also, one of the things that was interesting is, and this could just be me, but it did remind me a lot of The Shining. Nothing really happens in it to make you go, that's The Shining and stuff like that. And it might just be like the liminal space and stuff like that, or the wide open shots where we're seeing everything, and the way we're following characters and the slow pace. So it's more than likely that. But it did really remind me of The Shining, and really made me want to watch The Shining, which I'm absolutely going to have to do again for the millionth time. But it did remind me of The Shining. But one of the other things that I did, and the reason I've put that in there, is because a lot of people, this is like a bit of a warning, this bit, and I don't want people to think about it like this other movie. Anyway, what's happened is recently I've seen a few things come up on the socials, people talking about this movie and referencing or mentioning the name Skinamarink. Skinamarink is a movie that I really did not like. It was so boring. I'm an old man, but I also don't nap yet. I'm not to the point where I'm just want to go and have a nap. I just wanted a nap the whole time through Skinamarink. I do not like that movie. If you're somebody that loves it, good, well done. Like, this is why horror's great, because it's so subjective. But me personally, I could not stand Skinamarink. But what I don't want is for people to put out there that this movie might be a bit like Skinamarink, and then for people like me who hate that movie to then go, oh, actually, I don't know if I want to go and spend my money watching a movie that's like Skinamarink. I don't think that whatsoever, because this is actually a very good movie that's structured really well, visually very good, well done, and it's a real good, entertaining movie from start to finish. And I really enjoyed the journey. As I said, there are things that I wish didn't happen or weren't there or could have changed. But I really enjoyed this movie. So I don't want anybody out there, if you're watching this review, which, as I said, you shouldn't be unless you've seen it, but don't get confused between the whole Skinamarink thing, because that is not a good movie. This is. So I just do want to make sure that people don't think that this is like another Skinamarink, because it's absolutely not, thank God. But yeah, overall, I really think Backrooms is fantastic. I'm looking forward to watching it again. It's one of those movies that when I was sitting there, I was like, there might be like quite a few more things to pick up on. I do think that also it gets a little bit confusing. I don't know, I didn't struggle too much not knowing that much about it. Like, I don't know a lot about the Backroom stuff, but before this movie, like, even, I heard that they were making a Backrooms movie. I'd already seen some of the Kane Pixel stuff on his YouTube channel, Kane Parsons, but Kane Pixels. I'd already seen a fantastic one. If you haven't seen it, go and check out his Rolling Giant. It's absolutely fantastic. I also think that the fact that he's creating these in like a software called Blender, where it's not actually real, even though it looks photorealistic, and when you're watching it, if you don't know that, I didn't know Rolling Giant and things like that. There were some of them I didn't know that were computer generated. I was like, how is he getting the money to do this? I didn't realize a lot of it was computer generated, because I'm an old man and I don't understand the stuff. So when you're watching it and you're watching truly photorealistic stuff, it blows my mind. But on top of that, with Rolling Giant, he's creating something that's once again slow paced, but it does a great job at building up that tension, that dread, as he's done very well in the Backrooms. So I would absolutely recommend going to check out everything else that he's done, whether it's the Backrooms, Rolling Giants, the Law, everything that he's done. So you might get a little bit more of an understanding of what the Backrooms is and so on. I don't necessarily know too much, but I don't think that really massively affected me watching this movie. That's going to be like a big question for a lot of people is, do I have to see everything that happened before to watch this movie? I don't think you do, but it doesn't hurt, and it would help if you did, But I think that it works as a movie on its own. I'm looking forward to seeing if there's going to be more movies or more things. I know that Kane Parsons has said he's not done with this, and this movie clearly is more than likely going to be a big monetary success. I hope it's going to be a good critical success as well, because it deserves to be. But I'm very much looking forward to seeing what Kane Parsons does next, because he's clearly very talented, and we're in a very great time at the moment where we're getting young filmmakers who are clearly very talented getting the opportunity to be talented and show us how talented they are and be very creative and unique in their approach, which is one thing that I really love about Backrooms and some other movies that have come out this year with young filmmakers. We're in a very good time with horror, and this movie is a very good example of that. So there we go. That's my review for Backrooms. Fantastic movie. Really enjoyed it. I hope that you did too. As I said, don't watch this. We're at the end now, so you pretty much know most of the things that happen in it. But I really enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you think of Backrooms. Did you enjoy it? Did you not like it? Are there any things that you agree with me? Do you not disagree? That's what the comments are for. We can have a good old chat about this movie. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this movie again. And I hope that you are too. But until next time, stay creepy, fuckers.